Hi, my name is Mia Keeley, and I am a PhD candidate and sessional academic at the University of Tasmania. Working within this context, I also coordinate the Careful Reading Collective, which is a reading group made up of architecture and design students across undergrad and postgrad levels. The collective meets weekly on campus, on country around the confluence of the Plibertamilla, Lake Hilla and Kanamaluka rivers, country that for tens of thousands of years has been and continues to be an important gathering site for Palawa and Pakana peoples, the traditional custodians and caretakers of Lutruwita, Tasmania. The Reading Collective was formed 2 years ago with the aim of making time and space to explore what an unhurried, unassessed and undisciplined form of learning might look like, to encourage students to collectively take risks for no predetermined or measurable reward. It has been my experience that in schools of architecture, reading is a particularly invisible and largely neglected practice. In courses so focused on spatial and visual competencies, reading ends up being something that's largely done alone and in a hurry, so the real creative work of design can begin. Students are expected to arrive at class having done the reading, ready to demonstrate knowledge on a particular thing or topic. This approach to reading is premised on a linear path that begins with comprehension, moves through analysis and implementation, and ends in assessment. It leaves very little room for curious exploration or digression. The Careful Reading Collective alternatively pursues reading as an activity in its own right, for pleasure, experimenting with a reading pedagogy that has no end or use value. So unlike traditional reading groups in which participants are expected to have done the reading of a singular text beforehand, the Careful Reading Collective encourages people to bring along anything that they are currently reading or wishing to read, architecture related or not. Some collective participants bring a new text each week, while others dutifully stick to the same one until they finish it. Regardless, it is slow work. A typical session involves several of us sitting around a small table that's covered in snacks and papers and books, laptops and coffee cups. We chat about the week we've had since we've last met. We discuss the books we've brought, and eventually we begin to read individually together. This is not a silent or serious affair though. Reading is consistently punctuated by moments in which someone raises a thought-provoking question or reads a particularly interesting section out loud, and in doing so, opens up a variety of topics for reflection, dialogue, and exchange. These conversations are always engaging. Thoughts are shared with a care and a vulnerability that's grounded in empathy. Empathy for the text that we are reading, the ideas, the stories, and the experiences they contain, and empathy for each other. The encounter we create through reading together is in this way situated. It's relational and it's contingent. We aren't trying to figure out the text we read in the conventional sense, but rather we approach the practice of reading together as it happens. So instead of performing knowledge, the practice compels us as readers to consider our relationships with many people, beings, concepts, and things. This slow, incremental mode of reading has resulted in a form of learning and relating that is differently productive. For some, it affords a chance to read things that they would not have made time for otherwise, bringing with it a quiet sense of accomplishment. For participants with caring responsibilities, the reading group has provided an opportunity for them to temporarily take time for themselves. For most, though, it offers a consistent time and space within the week for engaging in compelling and at times challenging conversations, for venting frustrations, for seeking support, sharing interests, and making new connections across the boundaries of year group. Through the collective practice of reading and listening together, the reading group has, in small and modest ways, created a space for participants to care for themselves and each other, their time, their social spaces, and even their labor differently. This approach has quietly nurtured a space for thinking, feeling, and gathering that resists disciplinary enclosures and norms of instrumentalized learning within the context of an architecture school.